So finally, we move to e4, e5. Probably the best move objectively, very logical. Well, of course, there is a lot of theory here. So, there are many courses, or even on internet, on YouTube, you can find some theoretical courses on different variations after e4, e5. So my goal is to try to give you directions, at least in my point of view, which lines are prospectorous for each color, which are maybe dubious. And since, of course, I cannot go through every single line, so I will try maybe some lines I will skip, which I find not so important, and I will, I will try to cover as many variations as possible. But of course, you understand that it's very difficult to cover all of those lines after e4, e5. There is so much theory. But let's start. Let's start with the sidelines after e4, e5. So most of them, today's lesson will be about all other moves than knight c3. Well, many of them are simply not dangerous at all. So I will go through those variations very, very quickly. But some moves are more serious, like second bishop c4, for instance, in my opinion. And we will also cover knight f3, d6. Then the next, what we will do is I will try to give my opinion and certain directions in those vast ocean of theory in Petrov defense, and then we go to knight f3, knight c6. So let's start today after e4, e5. Well, I mean, there are some moves like d4 is possible, but it's not dangerous at all. After e takes d4, queen takes d4. Of course, white gains some center, but is losing tempus after knight c6. So, I mean, it cannot be, cannot give real chances for opening advantage. But from time to time, some players are playing it. Queen e3 is the main move. Well, lately I saw that, white started to play queen d3 here. Anyway, it's totally obvious that white, cannot really hope to get an opening advantage if black reacts correctly. And actually, black's play is rather simple here, just developing pieces and so on. Difficult to get into real trouble with black in this variation. So white is sometimes using it just as a kind of surprise weapon. But all in all, you can just, if you're playing black, you can just check the theory. For white, for white players, I would not really recommend to do this, maybe only in blitz if you want, but basically, it's not a serious opening. For black, usually white plays queen e3, then knight f6, comes knight c3, bishop b4, then black castles, rook e8. You need to know a bit of theory, but basically it's probably black who is fighting for advantage here, not white. So that is not too serious. Then, of course, there is f4 move, and there is a lot of theory in King's Gambit. Very romantic opening. ef4, and now bishop c4, knight f3. Well, I don't want also to spend too much time on it, so I'll just tell you my opinion. I think that black is fine, basically, at least equal, probably better in this opening. And, almost any line is good for black. After bishop c4, knight f3, for instance, knight f3, there are different moves, like d5 is okay, but it's more like playing solid to equalize. I think that d6 is, I think Fischer's move is also fine, but maybe g5 is the most principal move. There is some theory, you need to know a bit, of course, but objectively, most probably black is just better here. So maybe bishop c4 is a little bit more interesting, but still black has many options, like d5, of course, is one of theoretical moves, probably leading to equality. But I'm not sure it makes sense to give the pawn. I think if I was black, I would already try to play for advantage, like queen h4 check, king f1, and now many different ways of playing for black. Also d6 is fine here. I mean, okay, that's an opening. Of course, if you like, it's playable opening for white, obviously, on a certain level. On top level, there are not too many grandmasters who dare to play it. But on the lower levels, it's perfectly playable. But still, again, I mean, if frankly, I wouldn't recommend you to play it with white if you are, playing professional chess and on the level of 2500 or more. And with black, I think practically every system is fine. So just choose one of the systems, study the theory, and switch on the engine. And probably if you take some time studying this opening, you will be at least equal with black out of the opening, maybe better. So then what are the other moves? Knight c3, that is a possible way of playing, makes sense. Knight c3, knight f6, and now bishop c4. Again, the romantic way of playing f4 here is not given anything. The idea is that after ef, you can have e5 or d4, I don't know. But basically, d5 is very well known defense. It's a good move, and usually white takes on e4, on e5, knight takes e4, and here, most of the time white is playing knight f3. Sometimes some other moves, but none of those moves are, is actually fighting for advantage. Even other way around, I'm not sure white can actually equalize after any other moves than knight f3. And here black, I think there is a new way of playing this. I mean, again, there are also bishop e7 is okay, but I think bishop c5 is actually a very interesting move. You can check the theory here after bishop c5. In my opinion, maybe white can equalize, but I'm not sure about it. So black is definitely doing fine. But knight c3, knight f6, bishop c4, that is playable. It becomes even fashionable, I would say, nowadays. There is a knight takes c4 move. As black, you don't have to do it. You can play knight c6, and after d3, it will transpose to second bishop c4, which we will study later. Also, black can play bishop c5, then d3 will have to be played probably, and then again we move to this bishop c4 system. But with this move further, black can also try to play knight takes c4, and now it's getting pretty forced. Of course, if knight takes c4, d5, that is not good for white. Same goes for bishop f7 check, king f7, knight e4. Also, black is just slightly better after d5. So queen h5 is a move. It's old romantic line. Knight d6 has to be played. And now, queen takes e5 check, queen e7. Black is forced to change queens, and the endgame is pretty equal. So bishop b3 is a move here. And black has a choice of playing very solid, just kind of solid normal game, or to go for crazy line, which is knight c6. And now the theory goes knight b5, pretty forced line. g6, queen f3, f5, queen d5, queen e7, knight takes e7 check, king d8, knight takes e8, and b6, followed by bishop b7. Extremely complicated position, very interesting, very unclear. So if you want, if you like to play this type of positions, you want some fun, some romantic chess, that is possible for black. If you want to play it safe, then probably you just should go bishop e7. Then white already has to take on e5, and castles d4, knight c6, queen f4. So there are some games even on quite top level on this position. It's pretty unclear. So I think black can do b6 or b5, then followed by knight a5, and it's pretty unclear according to computer. Roughly equal but complicated game. But again, you don't have to take on e4. So knight c3 is also playable, but not cause black too many problems. Then bishop c4. That is already a serious move. What is the point of it? The point is that most of the time white plays bishop c4 in order to avoid Petrov defense. So knight f3, knight f6. Because frankly, if black is playing bishop c5, knight c6, then most of the time white actually transposes to Italian defense, but then avoiding Petrov. So if you are playing black and you don't want to play Italian, because let's say your repertoire is Petrov, and then you don't want to have the possibility to get the Italian defense, then maybe I would advise you to play knight f6, d3, and now c6. In case if you don't mind playing Italian, then you can play both knight c6 or bishop c5. Let's say bishop c5, then of course if white plays knight f3, d6, then you choose whether to put the knight on c6, which leads to a, totally standard Italian, or maybe to wait with it a bit, but most probably it's better for black to have the knight on c6 later on after c3. But anyways, that is not a problem in case you are ready for Italian. White only has this idea of playing knight c3 followed by f4, and now if you haven't yet played knight c6, now maybe black has an interesting option of playing c6 already here, and after f4, d5 is possible but dangerous. I think I wouldn't recommend you to play d5 here with black, but d6 is actually quite fine. It's just a complicated position. Knight f3, b5. For instance, you can start with knight d7 first, with a castle. So bishop b3 castles. White cannot take the pawn on e5 because of queen d4, obviously, and then just losing the knight because of queen f2 mate is threatening. So usually white is playing something like this, takes queen e2, knight bd7, and then black starts pushing his pawns, a5, etc. It's a complicated position, I would say. Black is fine, perfectly fine, but also playable for white. So that is a very possible move, bishop c5. Otherwise, there is knight c6, which is a main continuation, I would say. But now you have to be ready for this position after knight f3. So if you are, then you can play knight c6. And the only reasonable way, I guess, for white to avoid Italian is to try to play knight c3, followed by f4 in many lines. It's becoming, more popular, I would say, especially in rapid games among top players. So there is some venom in this line. It's playable, but black has quite a wide choice of perfectly decent, continuations here. So, but you at least here you need to make some work to choose first of all which line you would like to play. I will show you the 3 major lines. I think each of those lines finally is enough to equalize, but you need to choose and to study a bit of theory there. Maybe the simplest is knight a5, just trying to take the bishop. Usually knight e2 is played, and now maybe you can start with c6, but anyway, or bishop e7, and then this kind of position arises, castle c6. At some point, white is trying to play, let's say, a4. Now he's threatening bishop a2 already, so you need to take on c4, d6. Then white puts a knight on g3, b3, queen d3, and he has some control in the center, but black has 2 bishop, no weaknesses, and in general, you can check there are many games on this structure. I think it's perfectly playable for black. There is no advantage really here for white. So that is knight a5 is maybe the simplest option, But there is also bishop b4 move, very logical, because after knight e2 you get d5, open up the center, takes, but after castle, here you need to be careful a bit. So you need to study the theory. Bishop e6 is a possible move, but white also has some options here. Or maybe it's simpler just to take and play bishop e6, but also knight e4. I think that in general it's enough. Black has enough resources to equalize, but white has also quite a comfortable position in a way. So bishop b4 is okay, but I would rather go for the other 2 lines, knight a5 or bishop c5. This is very logical move. And now f4, d6, knight f3, and black has various options here. I mean, the main line is bishop g4, and again, would be useful to know some theory here. I think the main move is knight a4. Black is trying to take, white is trying to take this bishop, then to castle. But yeah, in general, if black knows the theory, then he should equalize. There's enough. I mean, his position is very healthy and has enough resources to equalize. So that is about the knight c6 move. But again, most of the players who play Petrov, wants to play Petrov, then again, this move order, they try to play c6. So in case of knight c3, knight f6, bishop c4, usually then black players try to take on a4 or playing bishop c5, d3, c6, just avoiding Italian. And in case of bishop c4, knight f6, d3, c6. Yeah, it's a very principal move, of course, followed by d5. And in general, it's doing quite well. The white has a few white can try a bit. I mean, it's not that equal, the position. There are some resources for white, but all in all, it seems that the current state of theory, black is doing pretty fine. After knight f3, d5, bishop b3. Well, the point is that after takes, bishop b5, white cannot win this e5 pawn because bishop d7, and after bishop takes d7, knight takes d7. So white's idea here is usually to play bishop b3. Well, with the idea, of course, after d to play knight g5. So d is not good. And black, the old main line, and I've played it myself actually sometime, somewhere in the 90s against Adams, I remember, among others, is bishop d6. But here white has a comfortable game. I don't know if advantage maybe is too strong word, but that is, I think, quite playable for white. I mean, I would definitely try here with white, because he has options of taking on d5, cd5, sometimes knight takes d5 is also played, but also it's not so easy to equalize. I mean, usually white castles and castles rook e1, and there is some pressure on the center, e5 pawn. And after cd5, bishop g5, there is theory, bishop e6, knight c3. There is a lot of pressure on this d5 pawn. It's not clear if it's enough for advantage with white, but still it's a little bit annoying. But also the old main line, so to say, knight c3 is it's also not easy for black. Because if d4, knight e2, then I think this position is very favorable for white, because the bishop is very, very strong on b3, and white has a potential sooner or later playing f4, c3, very nice position strategically. So what usually black is doing is taking d4, and now knight g5. Castles, let's say knight e4, knight takes e4. Yes, and I think I've played myself here bishop f5, but white has various options like queen f3, for instance. There is, I think, another option is to play knight a6, but all in all, it's a little bit better for white. I mean, black is really trying to equalize. He's very solid, but I think white can try here. So I wouldn't recommend you with black playing bishop d6. And that's why most of players nowadays they're playing two other moves. One is a5, very strange move, of course, but makes a lot of sense, because the idea is that after, if white is playing c3, then you can already play bishop d6, for instance, and there is no knight c3, which is a very important resource in this position. Among other moves, but bishop d6 seems to be good. So that's why usually after a5, white's best chance is to play knight c3. Because, for instance, if a3, a4, bishop a2, already bishop d6 is fine, because black is actually quite important resource that black can protect this pawn sometimes via a5 with a rook or queen. When white is starting, his play against d5 pawn, now you can always protect it, even playing rook a5. So after a5, usually white plays knight c3 here. And now bishop b4. Bishop b4, well, threatening to play a4, or take on c3, a4, just to win the bishop. So a3 is usually the move. Takes on c3. And now, actually, queen c7, computers are quite happy. I mean, the computers think that it's enough to equalize. Hard to say, because white actually also has a nice position, two bishops, etc. But yeah, at least according to the computer assessment, it's pretty fine for black. Or another way of playing is even more direct: a4, bishop a2, d4, knight takes e5, castles, and for instance, queen e7, d4, knight bd7. It looks interesting for white. Looks like it can be slightly better, but again, I think I saw Anish Giri playing this with black, and maybe black can equalize here. So that's the subject of the further, games which will be played on this line. So a5 is an interesting move, but most popular now is bishop b4 check. Again, very strange idea. Of course, if c3, bishop d6, as I've mentioned already, very important that white doesn't have this knight c3 pressing the center. So usually after bishop b4 check, white is playing bishop d2, bishop takes d2 check. Now more popular is knight takes d2, because if queen takes d2, black probably the most precise is to play a5, again threatening a4. So white usually stops it with a4, and now castle. And the idea is that after, if white takes the pawn on e5, then black can get it back via knight c6, f4, rook e8. Well, d4 is not good because knight gets to e4, so white should probably castle, and black takes back the pawn, and it seems that it's enough to equalize, because the bishop on b3 also can be a bit out of play. That's why usually white takes with a knight on d2. And now again a5. You see a very typical move in this variation. So a5 is the main line. White usually plays with a4, with a c3. So if c3, again, queen c7 is possible, but I think bishop g4 is more direct. Trying to play bishop g4, and then let's say in case of h3, you can always even take a knight bd7, followed by castle. Maybe white has a very tiny plus because of this bishop against knight, but it's really not much for white. That's why a4, I think, is played more often here. And now, there is again bishop g4 move. Queen c7 is possible, but then white can try at least takes rook e1, knight bd7, and now d4. That is the idea, and because black has still some issues with the bishop on c8, again, white can, try to organize some play. Maybe white is a little bit better here, even though not so much. If I remember correctly, there were some games of very strong players. Even Magnus Carlsen played it once, if I'm not mistaken, against Levon Aranyan. So that is... maybe at least playable for white, a bit better, but there is bishop g4 move, and now getting to more or less the same position. White should probably try to get something very direct, like takes. Sometimes white is trying to take with a queen, and then followed by g4, g5, but you will check. I think that if black is playing correctly, then has enough resources to equalize here. So all in all, bishop c4 is a possible try for white. If you want to avoid Syrian, and definitely it's playable for white. There is some venom, and what is also good about this bishop c4 move, that unless we are talking about a very top grandmaster level, most of black players, they don't know so well the theory after bishop c4, and then you can you can have quite a success, maybe potentially with this move, because again, it's not like black can equalize easily and with any move. Black has to know what he is doing. So this is an option for white to have in your repertoire, bishop c4, especially if you don't like to play Petrov with white. And again, with black, you have to know what you do against bishop c4. So, but of course, knight f3 is the most logical move. And now, before moving to the pattern of defense, which is second knight f6 move, there is of course knight c6, which we will cover extensively later. But there is a d6 move, so-called Philidor defense. If you know, Philidor was the best chess player of his time, and also he was actually a very, very good music composer. Quite famous at his time, so quite a personality, I would say. So he liked to play like this. I guess, at that time there were no computers a few centuries ago, and I guess he was also busy composing some music pieces. So that's why it seems to be a logical choice to be solid and then not to lose by force, and then to outplay the opponent, the weaker opponent in the middle game. Nowadays things are a bit different. There is a lot of theory, and everyone knows how to deal with it. So all in all, again, it's playable d6. It's not so easy for white to get an advantage, but obviously, d4 is a logical move. Of course, obviously, if white knows exactly how, then he will get some plus, definitely, because black is not really fighting for the center, so it shouldn't be enough to equalize fully. So d4, old main lines, usually black were playing with a knight f6, with the idea, trying to get to Philidor defense, so-called classical position of Philidor defense, which is still, I would say, not such a candy for black. But the thing is that via this move order, it's even difficult to get this position, because both on whether you start with knight d7 or knight f6, white has a very dangerous additional options. If knight f6, then d5 seems to be quite unpleasant. Now it's getting forced. Knight takes e4, queen d5. Then black's best is knight c5 and bishop g5. And old line. I remember I tried to make it work with black when I was a child, when I was a kid. At that time, of course, there were no computers, and not much information. So of course, I wanted to have some kind of handy opening that you don't have to know much. Philidor was looking like a good choice in this sense, but then I couldn't quite understand how do I get it. How can I manage to get the classical Philidor defense? Because via this move order, bishop g5, now let's say if queen d7, usually white just takes on d6, plays knight c3, long castle, and then he has quite a serious initiative in this symmetrical pawn structure, but his pieces are much more active, very unpleasant for black. Or bishop e7 is played, and then ed6, cd6, and knight c3. And this position is just, I would say, slightly worse, and easy play for white. So there is no point, I think, for black to play it with black. And if you try to get this via knight d7, first of all, c4 is a very unpleasant move, very unpleasant, because then you get to this King's Indian with a knight already on d7, and it's not an easy opening. But again, I usually, if somebody plays e4, he doesn't like to play King's Indian with white. But unfortunately, of course, knight c3, then black can play knight f6 and finally get to this Philidor position, which is also not so easy, of course, and white is slightly better. But at least it's playable. There is a game, but actually the problem is bishop c4 move. And now it's hard to understand how to get it with black, because it's quite well known. Bishop e7 is just bad because white takes on e5, and after d5 simply wins with queen d5 move. And after knight e5, white can take at queen h5, also simply winning the pawn. So bishop e7 is not possible. Knight f6 also fails because of knight g5 or d5 first, and knight g5 is just bad for black. I guess both moves are very strong. So that's why c6, and then white can just castle or even take on e5 immediately. Let's say castle, again, bishop e7. It's like the only way to get finally this Philidor set up. But d5 is a big problem. d5 and knight g5. And after bishop takes g5, queen h5, and then you take on g5. And, well, white has two bishops for nothing, so to say, and just very pleasant long-term pressure for the rest of the game. Even b3 here is very annoying because bishop a3 is sometimes threatening. So it just, maybe it's not a huge advantage, but it is definitely, white is definitely better and, without any risk, very easy play. So again, those two moves I cannot recommend you with black, but ed4, that is better. I mean, still, of course, it's not enough to equalize, but playing Philidor, actually, your main idea is not to equalize really, but just to get a game where your opponent will not be so familiar with the theory there. So, and you just want to get a playable position and play a game. So ed4 is probably the best way to do it, to manage it. And now, well, the series, actually, queen takes d4 lately becomes quite popular. Of course, looks much more logical to take with a knight, but the queen d4 is also quite nice for white. I can recommend you white players to study. There is less theory and the play is more positional. So knight c6, bishop b5, and white just wants to develop his pieces and very often play long castle and just enjoy some kind of space advantage. Let's say bishop d7. I don't know, taking on c6 is also possible, but after bc, maybe black is doing more or less okay, even though white should be a bit better because of the space he has in the center. But usually queen d3 is played, and now there is a knight b4 move. I think there was a game Karyak and Dubov here, among other games. Very direct move, trying takes, queen b3, d5. You need to check it with a computer, but I think that, white is probably better if he knows exactly how to play. And otherwise, after queen d3, let's say knight f6, if black plays, then white is just developing at some point, something like that, maybe bishop f4, playing long castle, and a typical position, which is, in my opinion, maybe it's playable for black, but it's always very comfortable with white and, very easy play. So queen takes d4 is quite a good move. So usually white takes with a knight on d4, knight f6, knight c3, and bishop e7. g6 is, very dubious here. Among other possibilities, I think the most dangerous and straightforward is just to play bishop e3, bishop g7, queen d2, short castle, long castle. Black is never really in time to get d5 here. Let's say rook e8, f3, and if knight c6, then white just plays g4, h4, he starts his attack, and it seems to be quite difficult for black to create his counterplay in time. So, but maybe it's black's last chance to get d5 here, but let's say knight b3 is one of the options, c6, bishop h6. That was at least what Maxime Vachier-Lagrave played in a rapid game against Mamedяров, and black had some kind of tricks. There was something going on. It was not that bad, but finally it seems that white managed to get an advantage out of the opening and win the game. That's why usually black is just playing bishop e7 here. And now white has a choice. It is a playable line. Again, I think that Dubov played it and even beat Magnus Carlsen in rapid chess with this line. So it is playable. I don't think you can really realistically, consider this line as equalizing line, but it's definitely playable with black. So the most dangerous move, at least the most aggressive move, is bishop f4, castles, queen d2. And now, so black is, white is trying to play long castle to start, just to have a full control in the center and start pushing his pawns. d5, of course, is a very important move here, but it seems that after knight db5, of course, you need to study theory here. It's extremely sharp lines, but as I understand, according to the computers nowadays, which are, as usual, helping a lot in such to understand what is the objective assessment of such variations. It seems that it's practically refuted. So white is objectively better, even though if white doesn't know how exactly he can get into trouble. But at the same time, if he doesn't know, probably he wouldn't go for this line. So that is, it seems that it's not working for black. Therefore, black has a choice of playing. Sometimes black plays knight c6, castles, just takes on d4 and bishop e6. But f3, I mean, here, I think it's a typical position, which is always very unpleasant for black. Difficult to play because white has a full control on the center and just healthy play. Let's say knight d7, queen d2, sometimes king b1, and, just controlling, full control and slightly better position with very easy play. But I saw lately, at least again in rapid chess, black started to play something like that: c6, long castle b5, and let's say in case of f3, very quick play with b4, knight e2. Well, knight can also go to b1, I think, but knight e2, c5. Trying to be very quick. Knight f5 takes d5, and it's we need to again analyze this position. It's very dangerous for black to play like this because white has various options like g4, g5 or knight g3. Probably objectively white should be better, but it's not so easy. At least you can try to have it. I mean, definitely not as your main repertoire, because very quickly then your opponents will start to prepare and push the button and probably find a very precise way how to be better in this variation. But as a surprise weapon, it can work. The problem is that white can, of course, he can just play bishop e2, castles, rook e8, and then black plays bishop f8. It's playable. But of course, white can play just a solid positional chess as well. That's a little bit of a problem for black, that white doesn't have to go for all those complications after bishop f4. Not even mentioning that, if you remember, there is forced queen takes d4 move, which is also not so easy for black. But g3 is a very, very nice solid way if you want to play it with white and you don't want to go into those sharp lines with long castle. Then g3 I can recommend you. Then at least the thing is that if d5, e5, it seems that here white is better according to theory. Knight g4, bishop g2. And at least the main line goes like this: castles, c5, knight db5, d4, knight d5, knight c6, f4. It is sharp. This position is sharp, but white is better here, definitely. So d5 doesn't seem to equalize, and it's very principal move. And otherwise, black usually plays castle. White is just playing bishop g2. That is a better version for white than to have bishop on e2, because you need to protect the e4 pawn, and bishop on g2 is more active than on e2, and playing very important role into defense of this e4 pawn and control on the center, also stopping d5 very often. So here castle, c6, let's say h3, black plays bishop f8, and a typical position which is quite similar to Pirc defense with g3, but actually there you have already g6, bishop g7, and bishop on g7 is much more active in Pirc. And even though white still has some chances to get some opening advantage, here I think just by logical play, central play, white will definitely be slightly better. But again, it's a game, it's a perfectly playable position. So this variation is not too bad. At least if you already played d6 in Philidor defense, if you already choose to play d6 here, then probably it is the only, ed4 is the only option which justifies d6 move. Otherwise, you have a risk of ending up simply in a worse position without any chances, to win, and just to defend the whole game trying to make a draw. So ed4 is definitely the best move in here, but still, no doubt, white should get some advantage out of the opening here. So now, next lesson, we will move to the Petrov defense, which is, by the way, I've played for so many years, so I know something about it. There is a lot of theory, so I will try to, it's impossible to cover it all, but I will try to explain you the directions, which directions are interesting, and what do I think about the positions, typical positions which arise in this Petrov defense opening. So I think it will be a subject next 2-3 hours we will study this Petrov defense.